Good afternoon, everyone. I think, yeah, it's afternoon. Again, my name's Michael Peercy. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I work with the Chickasaw Nation. I've been with the Chickasaw Nation for almost 24 years now. I'm a laboratorian by training and then became an epidemiologist. So I function as an epidemiologist in our Division of Research and Public Health. And I am also the administrator for our institutional review board. Our institutional review board has been in existence since 1997. And when we were first approached by outside researchers to start doing some clinical trials, some clinical drug trials. So it has grown and become more complex, and I think it's a good board. It's a good group to work with, and I wanted to introduce you to a couple of our colleagues here who work with us on the IRB that came with me this morning. So Christy Byers-Chavez is a research assistant with us, and really helps us a lot getting protocols in and out through the IRB. And Tasha Matthews is another research assistant that works with us, and really helps with logistics of running the meetings. So we appreciate both of them very much. When I was first approached to do this one, we had a discussion with Elizabeth about how we've kind of done this multiple times now. We've talked about IRBs, how they're different, and how they're different maybe than an academic IRB, and we thought we might introduce with my presentation, some of the new issues that are present with Native Americans in research and our relationship with the federal government and with those research institutions in the federal government, whether they be CDC or whether they be NIH. What are some of the issues that we're dealing with right now? So I am the technical representative for the Oklahoma City area on the National Institutes of Health Tribal Advisory Council. Bobby Saunkeah, who couldn't be here today, is the area delegate, and so I'm his technical advisor. So we attend meetings at Bethesda, and we meet with representatives from NIH and representatives from all of the other areas in the United States to discuss issues that impact Native Americans and research. One of the new issues that has come up, there have been a couple of older issues that we're still fighting with, such as the idea of the single IRB rule through NIH, where they state if there are multiple IRBs, if it's a multi-site trial, then one IRB should rule them all, basically, and that doesn't work for Native Americans. And we are still kind of lobbying and fighting against that rule that came out from NIH. A new program that has come out from NIH, it's been out for about a year, a little over a year now, is called All of Us. I don't know if everyone's heard of All of Us, but it's the recruitment of at least 1 million individuals within the United States to follow in a giant cohort over time, and included when you sign up for it, you take surveys and you sign over your medical records. Your medical records are given to them, and you have samples taken for a full genome analysis, and they take biospecimens to be stored in biobanks for future use. So in some ways, it's almost a nightmare scenario for Native American tribes. And so we've been working with NIH now for at least a year with multiple meetings about how can this work for tribes. The issue is the tribes could just say, we're not going to participate in this program at all. But the issue that we've run into historically is that we don't get to participate in research, and so we don't get to find out about our people and the issues that we have that might be different than seen in the white population, African American population. So it's important that we participate in research, but we have to do it in a certain way. And we're trying to convince the NIH that, things need to be changed within that program to allow us to still have some oversight over what's happening but still participate and still get a benefit from the program. Some of the big issues that we've run into include data ownership. You know, when people sign away their medical records, their entire genome, they sign it away. They no longer have any ownership of that data. It belongs to the NIH and can be used as they see fit. Again, medical records, same way. Currently, there's no good withdrawal of consent. So if you decide you don't want to be a part of it, you've already submitted all your stuff, and they've got it. So that's some big issues we've brought up to the NIH, that we have policies in place to govern the research that takes place within the Chickasaw Nation, and the All of Us program violates every one of our policies, every single one of them. So we have been working with them. They have formed a tribal collaboration work group that is specific to the All of Us program. Bobby is on that committee. I advise him while he's on that committee about things that can be done. They have developed what they call a data. It's a data board. When the way All of Us works, they create a huge database. That database is open to almost anyone who wants to retrieve data from it. There's a certain level of data that anyone can just download at any time. There is a data tool that you access. You can download that data. If you want something that has a little more granularity, that seems like a little higher risk, you have to go through a data monitoring board for them to release that data. But that would include, at the moment, Native American data. And we've lobbied for a year. We now have one person that sits on the data monitoring board, one Native American person for more than 500 tribes in the United States. So that's an issue. We have, at the moment, they have embargoed the data that Native Americans have given so far that have already been recruited. That data is not included in the data that can be searched at the moment. And we have also asked that they not be able to search by zip code. So they can't pull data by zip code, because there are areas in the United States where a reservation may be an entire zip code. So you'd be able to pull tribal data that way. So we have embargoed those. NIH is working now to work with, trying to figure out how to work with the tribes. How do we make this work? So they issued what they call Dear Tribal Leader letters. There were 3 of them that were issued this summer to set up formal consultations with tribes to work on how we can get this fixed. I don't know that very much has come out of the consultations yet. So we're waiting on those reports from the NIH. And so moving forward, we continue to work with the NIH TAC on this issue. We are adamant about the protections that need to be in place, and moving forward, how does this benefit the tribes, and how do we protect our people? So that's just an idea of some of the things that we work through with IRBs. So this is a big one, so I thought it would be good to kind of illuminate it, because it is a big issue. Most of our issues are a little smaller than this one, but this is a big one that we're fighting with right now. So do we want to do questions at the end? Do we want Elizabeth, or do you want Sohail to go ahead? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Did I cover everything you wanted me to? Okay. Okay, thanks.
It's now my pleasure to invite Dr. Sohail Khan. Dr. Khan is the Cherokee Nation Health Director of Health Research. He has taught us so much, and he is going to address the very important ways in which tribal sovereignty impacts research, and there's a lot to learn. And for many of us, we can't really hear it enough. We always take something new away. So, Dr. Khan, thank you so much. Do you prefer this microphone or the lapel?
This is fine.
Is that okay?
Full disclosure, the picture is 10-year-old. But I'm the same person who's in this picture. All right, so my name is Sohail Khan. I've been working with Cherokee Nation for a quarter of a century. And my training, I went to med school, then epidemiology and biostatistics, and been doing human subject protections for almost as long as I've been working at Cherokee Nation. So that's my little introduction. There's a PowerPoint because it's kind of, there's a state law about these things that you have to have a PowerPoint at any of them. So I made one, but I'm not probably going to stick to it. Pretty typical of me. I go everywhere. Anyway, so I just want to give you a sense of the tribal perspective when it comes to human subject protections and sovereignty, and how the tribes draw that strength to enforce these ideas. And sometimes people are familiar with these, and other times it's a shock to their system, but nonetheless, I just want to share these ideas with you. So first, this is like really rudimentary for some of you, but I don't know the mix of the audience, so I'm just going to talk about this. So what are the tribes? Tribes are not ethnic minority groups, but sovereign nation within the nation, and with their own government codes and licensing and taxation and law enforcement, and their members carry dual citizenship. And I'm told a few months ago that Cherokee, if you carry a Cherokee Nation passport, that could be used as your identification as you go through TSA. So that's what Chief Baker told us. We are learning, or we have learned, that I don't know where we are with this, but there was a case that went to the Supreme Court, Murphy versus Royal, and according to that, it is possible the Cherokee Nation is still a reservation. So we're using that term reservation interchangeably these days. Some of our applications, we're told, use that term. So the concept of tribal sovereignty. Are we there? Okay, cool. It is the inherent right of Native people to self-governance, determination, and self-education governance of activities within their own native lands. And I provided a link if you want to research this concept some more. There's a link in my presentation, and I hope you can make this available. Perfect. This sovereign status is a defining feature of American Indian tribes, and it differentiates them from the communities with whom researchers might have worked. So this, I have, in over a period of 20 plus years, I've received this question a lot because we do certain things differently. For example, tribe has certain power and authorities, and I'll get into it in a minute. We also perform publication review before you put any information that was derived from Cherokee Nation in public domain, which is unique and not a function of a typical IRB. They don't do that kind of stuff. So this forms the basis of that. This gives us the authority to do it that way, the way we want to do it. The next one, the tribal sovereignty and research enterprise. So let's talk about that, because this is the week, this is where you're here to learn about, what is the tribal sovereignty as it relates to the research enterprise. The tribal sovereignty maintains the authority of the tribes to regulate research within their own jurisdictions. Number one. These are really powerful statements. Tribes have legal right to support or stop research activities. Their reasons don't have to be disclosed. Tribes have legal right to request exclusive ownership of research data. I have heard this argument a lot from people who are unfamiliar, have never worked with Indian tribes, that, oh, this goes against the concept of academic freedom, and this sounds like a censorship. No, it's not. And I'll talk about the reasons why it's important that tribes own that authority. And tribes, most importantly, have the right to say no. Your idea, research concept can have tremendous scientific value, but if it's not relevant or timely, fulfills the need of that tribe, they can say no. In academic institution, you can proceed, get the money and get things going. But Cherokee Nation and most of the tribes can say, well, it's not relevant. There are other areas that we think are important. Let's talk about those. So tribes can say no. The next one. The dominant model that people are familiar with, I call it, and commonly known as the Eurocentric nature of research process. And that has really heightened the Native people distrust of the research, the way it comes across. The Native people past experience with unethical research practices have left an unfavorable legacy that influences their relationship with the modern investigators. Research questions offered are not relevant to Native people, concerns and interests and priorities. This is an important concept, so I want to take a couple of minutes of your attention here, because some of the things that I encountered just very recently, and where the mindset of a Eurocentric researcher is, and where the tribe is. So, I found that a lot of concepts that are sent to us are based on deficit model. What is wrong with you? Let's find out. And that concerns me. Why not talk about the strength model? What is the strength of Indian people? They almost never involve the traditional tribal knowledge into the practices and how they design the study. I'm going to share from my own experience. We had a project, very limited funding, but listen to the concept. So it was about, as you probably know, that we found that babies were slightly overweight in our population. We found that out. So we looked at the data, and so we wrote a mini grant, was funded. We had about $10,000. And so we bought these 8 modules to teach expectant mom to eat healthy and exercise and buy the right type of groceries, because it affects their health, it affects their family's health. And we found literature suggests that babies who are born obese or overweight are going to have a good chance of becoming obese adult or overweight. We have that issue, it's pretty commonly known. But this is what we did. We added a little element. So in 8 of those sessions, I had a research nurse and my assistant. Both were really good at one thing. They were good at beading, Indian beads. So we spent about $200 on beads and materials, and the leather and all that stuff was donated by the shop. And we taught them how to make Indian moccasin for their babies. We did 8 sessions. At the end of 8 sessions, those shoes were completed, beaded shoes for their own offspring. Believe me, our plan was to recruit 25 females. We ended up with 44 females. We never had loss to follow up. Nobody dropped out. They all showed up. So the lesson here is that And you know what? It was an idea that came from a Cherokee person that, if you use some of their knowledge, it'll work better for you. So the science got done, but along the way, it became a very successful project. I've shared this idea with research community and other people that as you sit down to design the study, think, talk to the community and try to engage and find what is it that appeals to them, that's important to them from their culture point of view. It works. Another concept that I like to share, this is important to me, and how much time do I have? 5 minutes? Oh, I'm just getting warm, getting warmed up. It's okay, but this is important. I mean, the rest of the stuff you can just read on your own. Because this actually really appeals to me as a non-Indian person. When a researcher designs a study, they often don't think about what is the legacy of their research. What is it that they're going to leave with the community? I recently worked with a researcher, had a marvelous idea. And I said, okay, so where are you going with this? I mean, what do you want to do? I mean, once you're done. And she said, I'm going to publish a paper. That's it. And I said, well, why don't you go a step further and think in terms of what are you going to leave for Cherokee moms that you plan to work with? What is your legacy? Why it's important? For example, why don't you go a little further and say, okay, not only am I going to find out that your dietary habits while you're expecting, because of neuropsychological phenomena, as she pointed, may cause you to eat something unhealthy. I'm going to work with you and find out how you can substitute that with healthy food. And you can still write your paper. Because here's what I learned. There's a group of elder Cherokees, they're called wisdom keepers. And one of the person who works with them is a member of the IRB, and he was telling me a story that, these people, some of them are traditional healers. When they go in the forest to forage, to pick herbs, to treat their patients, they always leave something of value. They just don't take, they leave something. And I think that to me is an important concept and idea. I mean, I can stop here and I think my job is done after that. But I mean, if you go back and you think about and talk to your peers and other people, to me, when you come up with those kind of ideas, then only then tribe stands behind your research. Otherwise, you can have a marvelous idea, scientifically awesome and whatnot, but Cherokee Nation is not going to go for it. Okay, the next one. The other important concept I want to talk about, I'm way over my time, so let's talk about community harm, which is extremely important concept here, because when you have heard about the Hawa-Suphi study, and it's a tribe of 600 people, 100 people consented to the study, the other 500 didn't. There was a serious issue with the informed consent. The consent was given because the researcher convinced 100 people of that tribe that we may be able to we're going to do a genetic study and we may be able to find a genetic link to the diabetes, which was prevalent. Community signed up because they thought they are contributing to wellness of their own community. However, the informed consent was limited to that, but the researcher went berserk. She did studies on, let's see, schizophrenia, theories of origin, and their core beliefs, migration study, inbred. A lot of those issues were, they never consented to that. They never would have. But that's where the origin of mistrust occurred. The tribe had to go to court to actually make their point, which is so unfortunate. But here's the deal. The 100 people who signed up, now you have published papers based on that. And actually, one of the members of that community happened to be in a presentation where this was being presented. She said, no, I didn't sign up. I mean, we didn't sign up for all of this. What are you talking about? And it was coming across that all these things are happening to the rest of the 500, entire Havasu tribe. That is community harm. So socially identifiable communities can be harmed even when you state the facts. And that's why tribes insist upon reviewing your data and publication and the data ownership so that they can actually work with you for sensible and reasonable presentation of facts. All right? So, okay, I'm going to stop there. The PowerPoint you can make it available, whoever wants to, and I'm going to be here so we can talk some more if you need to. Thank you so much. Good.
It's my pleasure to invite Captain Ryan Schupbach to our podium. He is an OSU alum. He is the U.S. Public Health Service Vice Chair, the IHS National Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee member. He's on the FDA Drug Oversight Safety Board. The man is accomplished. I urge you to read his bio, and I hope you enjoy his talk as much as I will. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, welcome, everyone. I certainly appreciate the invitation and the hospitality. Thank you, Elizabeth, for inviting us back again, inviting me specifically. I took advantage of the hospitality. I had the garden salad, so if I have any green lettuce in my teeth, please let me know. But it's always an opportunity to come back. I always appreciate it. Like I said, I am an alumnus of this fine institution, so it's always interesting. I'm now 20 some odd years removed, so when I walk through the student union, it changes every time. It always looks different. So got two boys coming up. One's a freshman, one's a junior, so I'm trying to push them this way. We'll see what happens. My wife is she's a Sooner fan, so we'll see. But anyway, thank you again for the opportunity. I'm going to kind of just provide some perspective from the Indian Health Service, from the federal side of this. As Elizabeth mentioned, I'm a pharmacist by training, but when you work for the federal government, oftentimes they offer you opportunities for collateral duties, and this was one that I had the opportunity to take, and so I did. I'm the co-chairman for the Oklahoma City area Indian Health Service IRB. So I've been in this role about two and a half years. I'm the new guy comparatively. These gentlemen are much more experienced, and so I often defer to them. I have questions for them, and I appreciate getting the opportunity to be up here with them. I'm kind of envious. Sohail's got PowerPoint slides. Michael has graduate assistants. I've got nothing. But a piece of paper. I jotted down some notes. But anyway, so just to give you some insight into our process. We're much like any IRB. We're a smaller group of 8 members, pretty diverse background. We meet every other month, convene there at the area office. We're currently overseeing 26 projects and counting. So we stay busy much more than I appreciate at the time. Our jurisdiction is from the Indian Health Service federal-wide assurance, and what that states is it authorizes us to review and approve all human subject research that comes through either IHS, that uses IHS staff, resources, or facilities. And so that's how it gets to us. We work with tribes, we work with tribal health boards. Our jurisdiction extends but excludes any institutions, sovereign nations, or tribes who have their own IRBs. And these two gentlemen here obviously have their own IRBs. The Choctaws are not represented, but they also have their own IRB. And so it's a small group here within the Oklahoma area, and so we all communicate on a regular basis and involved in a lot of overlapping projects and such. But anyway, I mentioned our role is to serve really for tribes and Native Americans who don't have an established IRB, and so there are many tribes that don't, smaller tribes typically. And so some in this area, a lot of research comes through Southwest Oklahoma. There are a number of tribes there, particularly 7 tribes in Southwest Oklahoma that formed kind of a consortium, a health board. It's called the Southwest Oklahoma Intertribal Health Board. And what that allows them to do is just to address a number of administrative and tribal needs and such, but because they recognize they didn't have an IRB, so we work with them directly regarding any type of research. And so there's also the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board. We work a little bit, us less so, probably more so with the Southwest Oklahoma Indian Interurban Tribal Health Board. So the Indian Health Service has a national IRB as well, and so let me digress. We have 12 areas within the United States. We have the Indian Health Service has 12 areas or regions, and so we're in the Oklahoma City area. It's not specific to the state. It's actually Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, but there are some areas that are very small, Navajo, Tucson area, so it's not geographically bound by any state borders or anything, but Oklahoma City is the largest of all of those. But when we have when we receive a proposal, research proposal that encompasses more participants from outside of our area, then we actually defer that to our national IRB. And so sometimes you'll see that wasn't always the case, but it is in place now. So now if we receive anything again that extends it, and we'll get often opportunities, for research coming our way that will extend into Phoenix. We always defer those up. And so I was just looking, I just got an email from our National IRB Director. Her name is Commander Rachel Tracy. And so anyway, we just communicate with them on a number of different issues. Sohail and I share a unique situation, and it's overlapping jurisdiction. And so this is always interesting, and it's oftentimes, I think, unappreciated or underappreciated rather, but because our jurisdiction, the IHS, it extends into federal facilities, urban facilities. What happens at certain times, and in rare instances, if research is proposed at, for instance, the Claremore Indian Hospital. The Claremore Hospital is run, it's a federally run hospital, but it falls within the Cherokee Nation lands or territories. And so what we do at that point, we have overlapping jurisdiction. And I don't know if this was established prior to me coming on, I'm guessing it is, but essentially both parties just have a role in seeing the approval of that project. And so depending on the depth and complexity of the research, Sohail and I may schedule a time to talk, or but independently we'll both come to a conclusion on that research. And we typically defer to the tribe specifically to kind of make that initial assessment, and then we sort of follow up as a second set of eyes. But anyway, so we have a very good relationship with our tribal partners on this, and we certainly appreciate that. Really, the one thing I just wanted to touch on, this is really the last thing I wanted to hit on from a practical perspective, and I think prior to this role, I actually worked at the Claremore Indian Hospital, and I worked with OU at the College of Pharmacy, and so part of that was there were manuscript or research type requirements, and so I had the opportunity actually to come to know Sohail at that time. But one of the things that again is different with the Indian Health Service and with tribes is the aspect of ownership of the data, and particularly, again, from a practical level, the publication of data. And so when we approve something, and I'm speaking for the Indian Health Service, we approve a project, but we retain ownership of that data. And much like Sohail was mentioning it before, how that translates, again, practically, is that prior to you publishing anything, whether oral, written, however format, there's a requirement that you bring it back through Indian Health Service or the tribes, respective tribes, for review. And essentially, we have the right to say no. We oftentimes we understand that publication is part of this, and so not trying to frighten anyone. We get it, we understand it, but there are certain elements and sensitivities and things, and so we sort of reserve the right to have that review prior to the publication. And I think sometimes that is not fully understood. We just had a case about a month ago with a large institution where we had to sort of clarify that. So anyway, I think it's important to note, in academia, typically when you go through, once it's approved, it's carte blanche, everything else is good. It's a little bit different, I think, with tribal and Indian Health Service folks. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'm sure we have plenty of time for questions, but anyway, I appreciate your attention. Thank you very much, and we'll take questions.